Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT08, and BT08 offers us lots of new and exciting cards to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be a brand new version of the BeelStarmon deck. So I think the BeelStarmon deck is still going to be a relatively strong deck that you shouldn't sleep on in BT08, just because the whole core concept of having lots of powerful options to not only build up your field but also control the opponent's field is still just very, very powerful, especially since we have a card like BeelStarmon to help be able to play them for free and reduce her own cost to make her even easier to use. And I think this strategy is going to be really good in BT08 still, especially since we have different ways to tech the deck with all of our different options that cost 7 to be able to customize it for any given meta. So without further ado, onto the profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of DemiMeramon. So this is the BT03 DemiMeramon, and this is still just the best generic agate that we have access to. So it has a nice inheritable ability of on delete, we get to draw 1 card and then discard 1 card from our hand. So this is not only helping us dig through our deck, but set up our trash with cards from our hands that we want to get rid of to make BeelStarmon as efficient to play as we could possibly make her. And then the 5th Digitama of the deck, it could really be anything you want it to be. I'm going to be incorporating 1 copy of DemiMeramon from BT08, just because its inheritable ability states that during your turn once per turn, when a card is trashed from your deck, then you get to draw 1 card. So if you wanted to incorporate a little bit of self-mill instead of looting, then this is a really good Digitama to reward you for doing that type of strategy. And the main benefit from incorporating a lot of self-mill is the fact that you could potentially fill up your trash even faster than if you were to draw and discard. But it does come at the cost of you don't know what you're going to be getting rid of, so you just have to weigh what approach you want to be taking. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gabumon. So I do prefer the drawing and discarding approach, and that's the direction I'm more leaning towards this version of the deck, with his inheritable on delete ability of drawing 2 cards and discarding 1. So you combo this with DemiMera, and now you're drawing 3 cards, discarding 2, which is just a lot of cards that you're seeing, and a decent amount of cards that you're filling into your trash more selectively for your abilities to trigger. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gazimon. So Gazimon is still an important card just because there is still just a lot of memory manipulating shenanigans, and he is the perfect card to shut some of that line of play off. So he has the nice ability where during all turns, your opponent can't gain memory except by Tamer effects, trying to limit and act as a floodgate to prevent the opponent from doing as much memory manipulating shenanigans as they can possibly do until they get rid of Gazimon. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Labramon. So Labramon is another looting style card where it just has the nice on-play ability to help us draw 1 card and discard 1 card from our hand. So in case we are trying to hide a Digimon in raising, then Labramon is one of the best cards to just hard play to continue the aggression by having another body on field and help progress our actual game plan with setting up our trash. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Impmon. So this is the BT06 Impmon, and this is a really good card because it is another card to help discard cards from our hand with its on-play ability, but it also helps bring back our 7 Great Demon Lords or 3 Musketeers, which is mainly going to be our BeelStarmon, so we have even easier ways to be able to reuse our BeelStarmon. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Vilemon. So Vilemon is going to be the deck's dedicated blocker, and we actually have the space and ability to want to play a blocker because we could reuse the blocker with some of our other cards, making Vilemon a little bit more valuable in this deck than others, especially since he has 6,000 DP to try to help wall out anything that's smaller than him. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Ginkakumon Promote. So Ginkakumon Promote is a very interesting card just because we have lots of different ways that we could utilize the card. The main pull on why we're utilizing him is the fact that he has Rush. We're never going to get his on-play ability off, but if you wanted to tech the deck to incorporate it a little bit better, then you could. But regardless, the Rush ability is just that good, allowing us to utilize him not only from our trash off of one of our options to be able to swing with right away, but Digivolve on top of our Digimon to also gain the Rush benefit. So he could Digivolve for 2 on top of a level 3, which is about average, but we could Digivolve him for 1 on top of a level 4 in case we just need to help continue the aggression. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Ishida Scatter Mode. So Ishida Scatter Mode is the main reason why I'm going with the whole looting, which is drawing and discarding a style of approach, because he has the nice on-delete ability where we get to draw 3 cards and then trash 2 cards. So this in combination with Gabumon in combination with DemiMeramon is just not only seeing a lot of cards, but trashing a lot of cards selectively, so that way we could try to line up our BeelStarmon as best as we possibly can with as many options in our trash to make playing her even more efficient. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 1 copy of Ishida. So this is the Ishida that is limited to 1 because this card is just that good. Having the availability at free pressure is just a little bit too much, especially in combination with other things in BT08 that we could have been doing. But because it's still just that good of a card, we still want to try to run it because we could still make very powerful plays off of it. So what this card is doing is it's acting as one of the best discard fodder cards, where if we have a card in our trash with Ishida Scatter Mode, when this card is discarded, then we get to play this card for free. So it's literally just a free body that obviously wants to be played off of our draw and discard power from Ishida Scatter Mode. Then it has a nice ability that's making it act as a very aggressive Digimon, where during your turn for each Ishida Scatter Mode in our trash, this Digimon gets plus 2000 DP, so this can easily hit for 7 to 9000 on a level 4 body. Next, on to the level 5s. Well, we're not running any because we don't need to, and instead we're just going to skip right to our level 6s, which is just going to be 4 copies of BeelStarmon. So what's making her efficient to play is her ability where she gets to reduce her memory cost by 1 for each 3 Musketeers and each option with a memory cost of 7 that are in our trash. So the more of those types of cards that we have in our trash, the cheaper she'll become, and our deck is loaded full of options that cost 7 for us to try to take advantage of her on-play ability, which doesn't want us to go up the stages anyway. So her on-play ability states that we get to return 1 option with a memory cost of 7 from our trash back into our hand, essentially allowing us to reuse whatever option is going to be in there, and she even has the nice upside where then we get to use 1 option with a memory cost of 7 from our hand for free, which could have been the option that you rezzed. So she just allows us to toolbox whatever options that we need to use in any given situation to either advance our board state or try to control the opponents. And then the last Digimon of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Omnimon Zwart Defeat. So Omnimon Zwart Defeat is still just that good of a card to use, just because we're already hard playing a level 6 relatively efficiently, so we could just use that level 6 to Digivolve into a Zwart Defeat with also efficiently, because he has a lower Digivolution cost compared to a lot of other level 7s. Then on top of that, we want to Digivolve into this card if we do end up drawing him, because his when Digivolving ability states that we get to delete 1 of the opponent's Tamers, which is pretty good to try to even have the ability to control the opponent's Tamers, which is ordinarily a more uninteractive element that a lot of players want to adopt. Then on top of that, he even could be a free level 7 if he's coming out of our security, making our security even more dangerous than the opponent might be thinking, because his security ability states that we get to play him for free without doing any battle, so even though they do still get to keep their Digimon, we get a level 7 for free. And he even has an on-delete ability for when he eventually does get deleted, if he even does, where you get to delete 1 of the opponent's Digimon, so he's just a very powerful card for the deck to be using overall for all of those different reasons. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Gewaltschwarmer. So Gewaltschwarmer is going to be a good board clear card to try to help delete all Digimon that are in play with a play cost of 7 as its main ability. We could use this card regardless of its color requirements as long as we have a 3 Musketeers on our field, which BeelStarmon is, and it's an option card that costs 7, making it have lots of good synergy with how the deck wants to be played. Then its security ability adds this card into our hand, so we have the availability to be able to use it whenever we need to. Most of the time we're going to end up discarding this card to put it into our trash, so that way it counts towards BeelStarmon and we get to have the available option for BeelStarmon to revive it and to reuse it whenever we feel like we need to. Next, I'm going to be running Happy Bullet Showering. So Happy Bullet Showering is another 3 Musketeers option, so as long as we have a 3 Musketeers on our field, we could use it regardless of its color requirements, and we want to use this card because its main ability states that we get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP. If they are tied, then they're all still just deleted, acting as some more good control and removal for the deck to want to be using. And it actually is a security threat compared to Schwarmer, where it activates its main instead of going into our hand, so when it's checked into our security, we'll be deleting one of the opponent's Digimon. And then the last Three Musketeers option is going to be 4 copies of Fly Bullet. So Fly Bullet is going to be the primary powerhouse removal option of the deck, where it has the main ability where we get to delete one of the opponent's level 6 or lower Digimon, so it's just helping us control the opponent's field more selectively, while also acting as another security threat to activate its main, de-incentivizing the opponent from wanting to swing into our security. And to continue the train on options that cost 7, next I'm going to be running 3 copies of Nailbone. So Nailbone's main ability states that we get to play 1 purple level 3 Digimon and 1 purple level 4 Digimon from our trash for free, but we don't get any of their on-play effects. So this just helps us bring back and reuse some of our Digimon, so we could use this in some defensive ways at bringing back a Vilemon, or offensive ways at bringing back a Promote, or we could even use this to try to help out further our engine by bringing back a Scatter mode. So we have lots of really good targets for us to be reusing off of this card that could be played for free off of BeelStarmon. Then on top of that, it's also another really good security card where we get to play a purple level 4 or lower Digimon from our trash for free without its on-play ability activating. So this security ability essentially just gives us whatever Digimon we feel like we want to be reusing outside of our BeelStarmon and our Omnimon Zwart defeat. And speaking of reusing our Digimon, next I'm going to be running 2 copies of Calling from the Darkness. This ability is that good, where we get to delete one of our Digimon, then return up to 2 purple Digimon from our trash back into our hand. So most of the time, we're going to always want to try to reuse our BeelStarmons off of this ability, which is pretty good, and it helps us delete our Digimon to get our on-delete effects off. But the crazy thing about the card is if we don't have a Digimon on our field, we could still use this card to at least grab 2 Digimon back from our trash, making it a very powerful option card for us to use in combination with its security ability, where we get to add this card back to our hand to use whenever we feel like we need to. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Mist Memory Boost. So Mist Memory Boost is a flex spot for the deck. It could really be whatever you feel like you want it to be, or you could just use those slots to help fix some of your ratios. But regardless, what this card is doing is it has the ability where we get to trash the top 2 cards of our deck, and then we get to draw 1 card to place this card into the battle area for its delay ability to be used, where we get to gain 2 memory at a later turn, and its security ability places it into the battle area, so at worst we get to use it for its main ability. But what we're trying to gain out of this card is just trying to fill up our trash as quickly as we possibly can, while gaining some various other benefits. And then the last option of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Cocytus Breath. So Cocytus Breath is a 7-cost option that we could use potentially with BeelStarmon as long as we meet the color requirements, because, you know, we actually have to, instead of the 3 Musketeers options where we don't care, or any option that's purple that costs 7. But this is a really powerful card because it has the main ability where we get to return one of the opponent's Digimon back to their hand. So in case we can't necessarily delete the opponent's Digimon outright, we have the available option to be able to bounce it back to their hand, with the security ability of activating its main, acting as yet again another security threat for them to worry about. And lastly, onto the Tamers, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Matt Ishida. So this is the starter deck 2 version of Matt Ishida, and this is what's going to allow us to be able to utilize our Cocytus Breath, acting as a very easy to play blue Tamer to get on the field for that blue source. But it's also a pretty solid card in its own right, acting as some additional instance of memory gain to be able to make more powerful plays possible, because at the start of our turn, if the opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution sources in it in play, then we get to gain 1 memory, so we could use this to help us be able to play our cards more efficiently. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Matt Ishida. So this is the BT02 version, and this is going to be acting as the deck's dedicated memory fixing Tamer, making sure that we're always going to be starting our turn with at least 3 memory, but it's also a card with its on play ability to help us reuse a lot of our cards. So its on play ability states that we get to return 1 purple Digimon or purple option back from our trash to our hand, so we could reuse it later, like our BeelStarmons and Calling from the Darknesses to, well, grab back our BeelStarmons. And then the last tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Analog Youth. So Analog Youth we're using as a consistency tool for the deck because it's an easy to play tamer, and its on play ability states that we could reveal the top 3 cards of our deck and then add 1 Digimon card among them into our hand and then trash the rest. So it's acting as a pseudo self-mill card to try to help fill up our trash and look for our BeelStarmons because, well, that's the most important card in the whole deck. Then on top of that, its all turns ability, which will rarely if ever trigger, states that during all turns, when one of your level 5 or higher Digimon with Digivolution sources is deleted, then we get to suspend this tamer, gain a memory, and hatch a Digi-Egg into an empty space into our raising area. So the only real way, the way this deck is built to be able to use that ability is using a Zwart defeat on top of a BeelStarmon, but we don't care. We're just using this as a consistency tool to help fill up our trash and add cards that we want into our hand. And then there's still just a lot of tech and tools that you could use in the deck to change it up depending on what the meta is and the kind of cards that you want to be incorporating. So if you did want to lean a little bit heavier into the self-mill strategy, then we do have Impmon as one of the best rookies to help us self-mill, while also acting as an Impmon to combo with the potential that we could be playing BeelZimon in the deck, because, well, the other Impmon that we're already running combos with it nicely. We have easy ways to res it, to be able to take advantage of the warp ability, because we also have easy ways to be able to fill up our trash. And BeelZimon is a fantastic card at just helping continue some of the control that the deck wants to be using already. And we do have cards like Darkness Wave to continue the whole self-mill strategy on top of the Mist Memory boost we're already going to be running. So we do have the tech and tools to be able to run a more self-mill based deck. And then to encompass the fact that we could be running Darkness Wave, we could play something like Black Gabumon. Not only is it a level 4 purple Digimon that has the rush ability for us to revive off of Nailbone, similar to Promote, but it also counts as that yellow Digimon to take advantage of some yellow-purple synergies. But regardless, we still just have a whole bunch of other cards to think about incorporating into the deck, like Soudbirdmon to just gain us some more memory for discarding cards in our hand, mainly our options, so that way we could fill up our trash with options for BeelStarmon to use. And we even have another floodgate in the form of Psychmon, so we could use Psychmon to stop the opponent from doing some of their actions, then Digivolve or try to delete Psychmon ourselves to be able to utilize our BeelStarmon. And then we also have Gabumon from the starter deck if we want to just try to continue with that whole draw and discard sub-theme that we're already going to be incorporating. The big difference is this is a when attacking ability and not an on-delete ability, so there are some pros and cons to both. But if we are wanting a really powerful level 4 to just try to help us discard some cards, then Ogremon is an absolutely fantastic card, so he could be a little bit more aggressive at adding some extra punch into the deck because we're already wanting to try to chip the opponent out with our lower level Digimon. Then we also have Dracmon to utilize it because he's interacting with our options that are costing 1 or 7, which is primarily the range of options that we're going to be playing with anyway. Then one of the best level 5s for the deck is going to be Skullgreymon, acting as really good discard fodder, so that way we could use his ability to shove him underneath one of our purple Digimon. So a BeelStarmon gaining the retaliation ability could be really obnoxious. It could help turn our Analog Youths online, and it's just a really good aggressive level 5 Digimon to end on, so that way we could try to help it discard cards and fill up our trash even faster that way as well. Speaking of alternative level 6s, we could just run Deputymon and we could run the other 3 Musketeers if we really wanted to, or we could just run something like an Avenged Kidmon when our BeelStarmons aren't going to be super great. Avenged Kidmon could help us also refill our deck and potentially delete one of the opponent's Digimon all at the same time. Then we do have a slew of other level 7s to think about incorporating, all depending on what your build is looking like, if you even want to run any level 7s at all. So we do have Omnimon Zwart as a really good card to just try to add BeelStarmon back to our hand. We do have cards like Susanomon to use for his Rainbow Evolution, so we don't necessarily care about what color they're going to be. And then we also have a slew of different option cards that all cost 7 in various different colors. If you are running them off color, then you probably do need to run a Tamer to at least act as that source to be able to utilize those options. But regardless, there's still just a lot of really powerful options that cost 7 for us to take advantage of because of BeelStarmon's ability. And then we also have just some other really generically decent option cards for us to think about. I'm going to be highlighting Deathclaw as a cheaper removal card to use to not only help us delete our Digimon to trigger our on-delete effects, but to delete the opponent's Digimon as well. And then as far as other tamers go, like I stated before, depending on what off-color cards you're going to be running, if you want to run any at all, you do have to run off-color tamers, but that isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world if you have the deck space for it, or you could just run something like a Mimi instead, where she's just already interacting with the fact that we want to use our options, and she could help de-incentivize or tax the opponent for utilizing their options, making her a very well-rounded and easy-to-use tamer. But all that shows is just BeelStarmon has lots of different ways that you could approach the deck, all depending on what you want to gain out of the deck. And this is just my interpretation of a really solid core or shell for what BeelStarmon could be doing, because I think that depending on the meta and how you build the deck, she could be still a very powerful and very threatening deck, especially going forward. If we get more powerful level 7s for her to use, then she's just one of the easiest level 6s that we could use to be able to gain access of those level 7s, and similarly, as long as they print more powerful options that all cost 7, then she's still a good card to think about to utilize those options as efficiently as we can. So she's just an absolute beast of a card, and this is going to be a really fun deck to be playing. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.